When Carl Harvey Stevens drove into Belfast in July of 1913, nobody could have guessed that he would one day become one of Belfast's most highly admired doctors. But over the next few decades, Dr. Stevens quickly became a well-known part of the Belfast community, working tirelessly to modernize the town's healthcare system. His patients fondly called him Dr. Carl, and thanks to his remarkable contributions to Belfast's healthcare, the nurses who worked with him sometimes even called him Dr. God. Carl Stevens was born on October 18, 1885 in East Northport, then later moved to Belfast with his family. He spent 2 years in the Belfast High School before transferring to the Maine Central Institute in Pittsfield, where he graduated in 1903. 2 years later, he became an orderly for the Maine General Hospital in Portland, before being admitted into Bowdoin's Medical School of Maine in 1906. There, he studied medicine while working in the Department of Bacteriology and Physiology to pay his tuition. Delayed by a year of illness, he graduated in 1911 after 5 years at Bowdoin. After graduation, he spent a year instructing at Harvard before returning to work at Bowdoin at the request of Bowdoin officials. In 1912, Dr. Stevens married Eleanor Westcott, a registered nurse at the Maine General Hospital. The two visited Belfast in 1913 during Easter vacation and decided to stay. They moved to Belfast on July 18th, moving into a house on Church Street, and Dr. Stevens got to work right away. The Belfast Museum has Dr. Stevens' daybook from his first year working in Belfast, with records of every case he treated that year and their costs. The very first case recorded was on the same day he moved in, treating his father, Mason Stevens, for a brown-tail moth rash, which only cost 50 cents. Dr. Stevens was soon recruited to work at the Waldo County Hospital by Samuel Johnson, one of the hospital's original founders. It was rather ill-equipped at the time. Dr. Stevens once said, "The old Waldo County Hospital didn't even have a microscope. It had no x-ray machine or elevator. I brought my own microscope with me and later loaned the hospital a gas x-ray tube, and it never came back." While he worked at the Waldo County Hospital, Stevens continued studying medicine by spending time at the Mayo Clinic, as well as postgraduate schools in New York, Chicago, and Massachusetts. However, Stevens still spent most of his time working diligently at the hospital, performing surgeries and caring for the people of Belfast in every way he could. In his first 12 years as a doctor in Belfast, Stevens reportedly delivered 700 babies and then stopped counting after that. In the winter, he was known to come into town either on snowshoes or in his Ford Model T, modified to work as a snowmobile. When the Spanish flu epidemic hit in 1918, Dr. Stevens was sent to Swans Island in Hancock County for 2 weeks to treat flu cases there. The island only had 2 full-time doctors, and one was in the army at the time while the other was sick, so Dr. Stevens had to care for the entire island's population. When asked about the experience, he said he never worked harder. 1930 was an important year in Dr. Stevens' life. That year, Stevens got the Waldo County Hospital accredited by the prestigious American College of Surgeons, or the ACS, and was elected president of the Maine chapter of the ACS. It was also around 1930 that Dr. Stevens and Eleanor Stevens moved from their house on Church Street to the Hazeltine house at 1 Court Street, where they lived for the remainder of their lives. In addition to his acceptance into the College of Surgeons, Dr. Stevens achieved multiple other positions throughout his life. He was admitted into the New England Surgical Society in 1937 and served as a president of the Maine Medical Association in 1942. He was also the first doctor to be a member of the Belfast Rotary Club and was later elected its president. In 1950, Dr. Stevens retired from practicing surgery and trained a young doctor named George Temple to take his place, though he continued to work as a general doctor for many more years. Dr. Temple and Dr. Stevens both worked out of an office on Franklin Street for a time, connected to Stevens' house. In November of 1956, Dr. Stevens participated in a groundbreaking ceremony to mark the start of construction on a new and improved Waldo County General Hospital. This hospital, completed in 1958, is still operating today as Waldo County's primary hospital. Though not much is known about her life, Dr. Stevens' wife, Eleanor Stevens, was certainly an avid member of Belfast's community. She was a charter member of the Waldo County Hospital Aid and a member of the Auxiliary of the Maine Medical Association. She was also a member of the Belfast Historical Society and the Women's League of the First Church of Belfast. Notably, she served as the first president of the Belfast Garden Club, founded in 1929. Eleanor passed away in January of 1959 at 74 years of age. The couple had 2 children, a son named John Stevens and a daughter named Alice Sutherland, and 6 grandchildren. Dr. Stevens continued his medical practice up until his death on January 30th, 1974, at the age of 88. Dr. Stevens and his wife are both buried in Belfast's Grove Cemetery. In total, Dr. Stevens spent 60 productive years caring for the people of Belfast. The Belfast Museum has a few artifacts from Dr. Carl's life in its possession. We have Dr. Carl's sphygmomanometer, a device used to measure blood pressure. Prescription cards from his office at 1 Court Street. A 1917 advertisement for Dr. Carl's office on Main Street. A medicinal bottle from the same office. And Dr. Carl's medical daybook. We also have multiple articles celebrating Dr. Carl's 50th and 60th anniversaries of medicine in Belfast, and even a letter to the editor lamenting Dr. Carl's passing. Using these artifacts, we have been able to put together the pieces of Dr. Carl's life and find out what made him such a beloved member of the Belfast community, earning him the title Dr. God.